we now know for sure NASA is not a credible source. The official story is that there was some type of magical technology that existed in the 60s and we've destroyed it and we can't replicate it. They're basically a glorified film studio. You gotta wonder though, like if space is real, why would you lie about it? NASA's lying to you, stealing your tax money, $60 to $80 million a day. So, topic that may be very new to some people, and I'll just go ahead and say it. When I first heard anything about this topic, I thought it was insane. So I don't hold it against you if you think it's crazy. But if you've been paying attention the last few years, turns out a lot of things are not as we were told. And that's an understatement. So, like he said, we're going to do a couple presentations. The first one is about NASA. You may be familiar. This is the organization that takes us to space. They landed men on the moon, allegedly. And they're totally not political. They're just a scientific organization. So what I want to do to start the presentation in honor of Heterosexual Awesomeness Month is check NASA and see where they stand on that subject. I wonder where they stand on that subject. I wonder if they would support the free beer. So it'll play a video. It's a few minutes long. It covers if they're going back to the moon. You would have to go the first time, of course, to go back. And we'll get into some of that. But so I figured to break the ice, we'll watch a video. We'll let NASA tell you their position themselves. So let's get into it.
Welcome to Storytime from Space.
We're going to the moon.
Join us.
Why do you think we haven't been back to the moon?
Historically, you'd have to say Apollo was kind of a fluke.
We've diversified.
NASA's Artemis program will land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon.
We are going.
We don't even have a target date for when we can anticipate a moon landing.
We're such an anomalous situation.
Which might all seem a bit strange.
We're going.
What year do you realistically believe we'll put land a crew on the moon again?
Within a decade.
We are going.
By 2020.
By 2025.
We are going.
Back to the moon, back to the future, and this time back to stay.
Returning to the moon is an important step for our space program.
We'll return American astronauts to the moon.
It sounds weird that we'd be so much more advanced now and we haven't gone back.
I agree. It's totally weird.
We're going.
And this is how.
Mission equity.
Why does it seem like we're worse at this than over 50 years ago?
I am gay.
I am gay.
I am gay.
I am a queer woman. I am NASA.
I am a lesbian. I am NASA.
I am a transgender woman. I am NASA.
I am a queer woman, and I am NASA.
I am non-binary. I use they, them. I am NASA.
We still have a little ways to go, and we're casting our net wider and wider.
We need gay scientists.
Hispanic doctor.
We need black engineers.
We belong.
We belong.
We belong here.
It's not all going to plan.
We heard the announcement that the Artemis mission to orbit the moon is going to be delayed, and then the next Artemis mission to land on the moon for the first time in decades is going to be further delayed. We saw just recently a very hyped SpaceX Starships blowing up after takeoff in the US last year.
With another setback when the Peregrine moon lander ended its mission in flames over the Pacific.
It was like reaching into the future and bringing a technology forward that normally wouldn't be there. Like, that was not the natural pace of technology development.
By the 1970s, there was a failure rate of about 20% of missions. In the 2020s, that number is closer to 45%.
We've had 50 years to develop the technologies. They've become cheaper, they've become better understood. But at the same time, you have all of these companies that are just learning.
I am non-binary. I am gay. I use they, them. And it just felt really nice to see someone else in the room using those pronouns. And I made sure to introduce myself with my pronouns so that they could know you're not the only one here. there's someone here who understands you and really just wants the best for you.
Really important that we can show that visibility is safe, and that you can absolutely be a part of the team and loved and valued for who you are.
It's never too late.
So we haven't had a lot of experience landing on the moon. We have had experience landing on Mars, landing on asteroids. I wouldn't say that we're out of practice as much as we just have a number of new participants.
At NASA, we're on a mission of equity to use science, data, and technology to advance equity.
Diversity and equity and inclusion and accessibility. NASA is just a small piece of the Biden administration's efforts to advance equal opportunity, but we should lead the way.
We also implemented a unity initiative on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. They're on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. Our strong commitment to DEIA is one of the important reasons that NASA has been ranked #1 among large agencies for employee engagement for the past 9 consecutive years. And we've also been ranked #1 in inclusiveness in the past 7 consecutive years. At NASA, we make air and space available for everyone. People don't have to hold their breath for fear of being a victim of discrimination, harassment, or retaliation. And space refers to our commitment to providing room for everyone to be authentic, to belong, and fully contribute to our agency.
And so we all know that diversity in space is needed.
We're going to the moon.
We're not going anywhere.
Not everybody can be a robot polisher.
Is outer space gay or straight?
All right. Well, that is exciting. So, as to the question as whether or not NASA is gay, we'll take it straight from them. They are gay. So, does that necessarily mean that they're lying? No. But it's weird, right? It's weird that they're a scientific community, allegedly, and they're very focused on politicizing homosexuality and inclusiveness. So, this is their tweet. I threw that on there. So yeah, just to break the ice, it seemed fitting. I had to add that there. So shout out to Robot Polisher who made the video. So also, I will say, I was recently on the Tinfoil Hat podcast with Sam Tripoli. Some of you may have heard of it. And he said that he has a friend who knows Elon very well, and Elon told him that we never went to the moon. Okay, so this whole interview where he's pretending we went is deceptive. So we'll get into the topic here. NASA was founded in 1958, and most people don't actually know that there was a predecessor to NASA called NACA, N-A-C-A, founded in the early 1900s. This will become particularly relevant in the next presentation, but they basically carried the torch until 58, and then NASA picked it up. And so what I've discovered is that almost no one knows anything about NASA. And so I want you just to think critically for a second. If there's a company or organization taking people to space on a regular basis, don't you think you would all know about it a little bit more? I think it's by design that you guys don't know about it, and we'll get into why in just a second. But so in 1915, NACA was founded. And so we won't keep this too historical and boring, but Congress established the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics or NACA, to separate the real from the imagined and make known the overlooked and unexpected in the quest for flight. So in 1958, the NACA staff, research facilities, and know-how were transitioned to the new NASA. So just so you guys know, the organization referred to as NASA did not actually just start in the 50s. It kind of started in the early 1900s. Like I said, this becomes very relevant in the next presentation. But you'll start to see an interesting deception going on here. So let's talk about the inception of NASA a bit. So in 1945, there was something called Operation Paperclip. You guys may be familiar with that. So after World War II, we brought Nazis over here, and we gave them a pass, basically. Now, you may have fallen down the World War II rabbit hole, maybe not. We're going to leave that for another time. we'll set that aside. It is an interesting rabbit hole, to say the least. But, of course, we're told that Germany was basically the devil incarnate, and the Nazis were terrible people. But our government brought them over here. It's called Operation Paperclip because they put paperclips in different folders of scientists, engineers, etc., that they wanted to bring over here. One of the main people they brought over here is Wernher von Braun. And he's one of the scientists brought over in the operation, later put in charge of space exploration for the United States. He oversaw building the first V-2 rocket that allegedly went to space. This is what supposedly took us to the moon. Now, it has since been discovered that Germany, the Nazis, were propagandizing the public, and they were showing fake videos of rockets, claiming they could go higher and faster than they really could, etc. But that's just the Nazis. America would never lie, right? So we took the same guy who literally, it's declassified and admitted, were lying and propagandizing the German public to think that they could shoot their rockets higher than they could, that they were going to go to space. That guy, and we brought him over here to the United States in Operation Paperclip. That's 1945, so it's a little bit before NASA, but he's later put in charge. I wanted to throw in here that when he passed away, he put Psalms 19:1 on his tombstone. And that, of course, is a Bible verse about the firmament. And it says that the firmament shows the handiwork of the Creator, of God. Now, we'll get into that more tomorrow night, but firmament literally means it's firm. That's why it's called that. Rakia, the root word, means beaten out, strong as bronze. So it's a container stretched over the earth that protects the inhabitants of Earth like grasshopper inhabitants. It's impenetrable. It's like molten looking glass, and it's beaten out strong as bronze. Now, the reason I find that interesting is why would the guy that took us to space, of all the Bible verses, on his tombstone put the Bible verse that says you can't go to space? There's no such thing as that. Side note here I have here, he also told his secretary space propaganda was being used to lie to the public. You can find that online. His secretary came out and said, so here's the deal. Everything about space is a lie. Anecdotal. I wasn't there. The secretary's come out and said that Wernher von Braun told her that everything about space is a lie. They're going to use it to deceive the world, specifically in a few decades, and that they're going to claim that there are asteroids that could come hit us, and NASA has to save us, and they're going to break down the borders of countries, etc. So it's interesting that this guy said that. Now, I'll just say this, just think critically. The Nazis were brought over here. They would have said or done anything at that point to avoid prosecution. Okay, I mean, if you've looked into it, they tortured them actually to get even specific confessions. And so the way that I see it is he cooperated because he had no choice, and he was a front man to claim he went to space. So here's another thing that most people maybe don't notice about NASA. This is an official PDF from NASA themselves. It's called The Origins of NASA's Name. You can look it up. And every single mission, satellite, you name it, is named after Greek gods. If it's not a Greek god, it's named after some other type of god or goddess. Now, I will just ask you, why would NASA care about Greek gods? What does that have to do with anything? You obviously, from a biblical perspective, that's ridiculous and unacceptable. Even if you don't believe in the Bible, you should wonder why a scientific organization not only wants to let us know that they're super gay, but they also want to name everything after gods. It's super weird. And if you look far enough, what you're going to find is that, well, it's an occultic, esoteric group. And this is all like a form of inner knowledge that they have as to what the world really is. I won't fall too far down that till the next presentation. But anyway, here's a few examples. You got Apollo. Artemis is where they're claiming they're about to go back to the moon. They've delayed that 7 times, whatever. You have Gemini, Mars, Odyssey, Atlas, Saturn. This is one of this is like, 5 of 50. Every single mission. Now, it could be a coincidence, whatever. Go read it for themselves. Go read it for yourself. You'll see everything is named after Greek gods. Pretty weird. So if we're going to put things into context, if you are a believer here, you should step back and think, okay, The person that supposedly took us there, on his tombstone said you can't go there, and used a Bible verse that said there's a firmament protecting you. The people that are claiming to go to space and defy this firmament are using Greek gods in all of their names. So just a side note, you guys may not have known that. Now, what I'm sure some people here are familiar with is there was a president named JFK. We're just on X, I think, so we can just say thanks. You may not know that JFK said that AIPAC had to register as a foreign entity, which means they have to reveal their funding, and he was, of course, killed. There's a few reasons he may have been killed, but before he was assassinated by a magical bullet, he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." That's September 12th, 1962. I think that all of us, certainly the younger generation, is super detached from this, so they don't understand exactly how significant. If you were alive, you know how important this was. This changed everything. This made America the powerhouse of the world. This gave us all kinds of credibility. The space race was over. We won the Cold War. It was a big deal. And so this is 62. This is him saying that we're about to go there. This is 4 years after NASA was founded. So this was like the first thing that they say that they're about to do. What you may not know, though, is there was an astronaut named Gus Grissom who was on the original Apollo crew, and he is quoted as saying, "How are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 3 buildings?" He also hung a lemon on the lunar lander, like a car that's a lemon. He said, "It doesn't work. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to space." He's also quoted as saying, "We can't even get to quote-unquote low Earth orbits. How are we going to go to space? We're not going to space. We can't. We're not going to the moon." So what happened to Gus? Well, I have a little clip here that shows straight from the horse's mouth what happened to Gus. So let's check it out. It's just a minute long, I think.
It's a Friday in Cape Kennedy, Florida. The Apollo 1 crew ends a long week with a test of the command module. A weekend with family is on their minds.
I seem to get busier all the time, and I find that I'm home less and less. That's about the way it's been going.
This is footage from another test a few months earlier. They will simulate space-flying conditions inside the capsule. As Friday morning turns to afternoon, they ascend the launch tower.
We've run one altitude chamber test on the spacecraft. We'll be running another one, and then we'll start our final preparations for launch.
They enter the capsule on top of the rocket. It's not fueled yet, so the test is considered non-hazardous. They close the hatch and pressurize the spacecraft with pure oxygen, exactly how it will be in space. Ground control and the Apollo 1 crew begin a long checklist.
Negative. Launch vehicle guide. Roger.
Communication problems cause delays and frustration.
Okay, Gus, you're pretty garbled.
More than 2 hours into the test, Grissom goes off script to express his annoyance.
How are we going to get the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings?
Then, there's a surge of voltage somewhere in the electrical system. Spotty communication reveals the capsule is on fire.
Hey! Oh, it's got a fire in the cockpit.
Ground control tries to hail the astronauts.
Hey, crew, can you egress at this time?
They call the workers on the launch pad.
Confirm it. Bad leader, get in there and help them.
It's only 17 seconds from the first call of alarm to radio silence.
Buzz, can you read us?
It's already too late.
that fire erupted. It didn't just spread. It was an explosive combustion. The hull of the spacecraft had ruptured from the pressure of the fire. The temperature got up to 1,200 degrees. There were puddles of aluminum that had melted during the fire.
It was sparked by an electrical short, fed by pure oxygen, and contained by the heavy hatch designed to lock out space. Instead, it locked in fire.
Nobody at NASA realized that they were putting those 3 astronauts into a bomb that was waiting to go off.
Long story short, routine checking of wires on NASA's facilities. There's an explosion. The door locked from the outside. The astronauts couldn't even get out and basically incinerated. So this is shortly after Gus Grissom blew the whistle, and he was obviously very passionate about it because he didn't just randomly say that we couldn't go to the moon. He went out of his way to hang a lemon on the lunar models that, knowing the news would pick it up in the United States, the American public would know that an astronaut on the Apollo crew was saying, we can't go here. This is a scam, basically. He died and was replaced. And you can think it's a coincidence, I suppose. I don't think so, though. So I want to also point this out. I think I've always thought this is super funny. Why were the missions to the moon called Apollo, which is the sun god? Did they just get confused? They just picked the wrong body in the sky? It's because sun worship is a very important thing in occultic groups, and you can look all the way through history. In fact, if you start looking into the Earth discussion, you'll find out heliocentrism was birthed from sun worship. And so the reason is because it's illumination. So it's the idea of being illuminated within yourself. It's the path to being godlike. It's called apotheosis. And so this is an esoteric tell. That's why they named the missions Apollo. But you can just think logically, why would we name the mission to the moon Apollo? What does that have to do with anything that's the sun god? Again, you can fall down that rabbit hole and you will find out it's because sun worship is very important. And side note, for heliocentrism literally came from the people that came up with it said that the sun was a god. So therefore it must be in the center of the universe and everything must be moving around it. And because it's a god, it creates a vibration that sings a heavenly song and everything moves around it. And that's not what this is about, but it's just interesting. If you look at the actual logos here, you'll see it actually has Apollo's chariot in Apollo 13's official emblem. That's, of course, the story that Apollo rode towards the sun. He was the sun god, and that he dragged the sun with him. Almost every one of the people that were on the Apollo crew and supposedly landed on the moon were Freemasons. Now, I don't know where everyone in the room stands on Freemasons. If you're a Mason, I still love you. I'm not hating on you. But it's weird. You know, I'm just going to say it like it is. Grown men playing dress up in the dark is weird to me. And you know, keeping secrets is weird to me as well. So, my great-grandfather was a high-level Mason. I think a lot of people are innocently Masons. I think they help out the community, blah, blah, blah. Not judging, just saying the whole core tenet of Masonry is secrecy. Every single one of the people that went to the moon were a Mason. The vast majority of astronauts are openly and publicly Masons, and who's to say who are not? And this is not me saying this. This is Scottish Rite. This may pull up right here. Here you go. This is their website officially bragging about it. So you got John Glenn, 33rd degree Freemason. Buzz Aldrin Mason. They're all Masons. Okay, this is the Scottish Rite official website, so don't take it from me. They brag about it. So, is it possible? People ask me oftentimes, we're about to get more into this. Do you really think that all the astronauts are lying? You mean like what, like 7 of them? Do you think 7 people could lie? I think after 2020, we should probably know a lot of people can lie. We're not even talking about a lot of people. We're talking about a few Masons that have secret handshakes and play dress up in the dark. So yeah, they could lie. They could lie. But they read the Bible on the moon, Austin. They're Masons. They lied. So just in case you didn't know that, maybe it's just a coincidence that everyone that went to the moon were Masons, but I'm just going to reiterate that the core tenet of Masonry is secrecy. It's a brotherhood. It's secrecy. You do not tell what has happened within Masonry. And I will tell you this as well. My great-grandfather, he discovered some things about Masonry towards the end of his life, and he wasn't very happy. In fact, he declined a Masonry funeral and rather took a veteran funeral, and they were not happy about that. And while I was there, I was approached by some people. And so this is a pretty serious topic. This isn't crazy conspiracy theory. No, there's a group of Masons, and when you get to the high level, you discover things that you may not have previously known, and it may be too late to go back. I'll also tell you that Freemasonry straight up says that the earth does not move and that it is flat. Their time. That's what the compass and square represents. So if there's a group of people who, in Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, head Mason guy, says that the earth is flat, you can't leave space, it's enclosed, and a group of Masons claim they landed on the moon and went to space, doesn't really add up. So, just so you know. Now, you might ask logically, well, why haven't we been to the moon since then? Well, let's let Don Pettit tell you why we haven't been to the moon since then. I mean, he's a NASA astronaut, so I'm sure he'll know.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
What? You destroyed it? So yeah, the official story is that there was some type of magical technology that exists in the 60s, and we destroyed it, and we can't replicate it. And if you don't know, this iPhone right here has more processing power than a warehouse, an entire warehouse of computers at that time. To think that we can't replicate the technology from the 60s is actually just stupid. There's no way around it. So this is the official story. They destroyed the technology, and they destroyed the telemetry data that would prove they allegedly went there. So just so you know, of course we haven't gone back. We didn't go in the first place. I don't have enough time to break down the moon landing to you guys. That right there is a whole presentation. You can check out the American moon. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. Many documentaries have broken it down. I'll tell you the most concise way to refute the Apollo missions is the communication based on the speed of light. So the moon's supposedly 238,000 miles away. Right, we have a specific speed of light. That means that the communication could have only gone there and back in a certain amount of time. It's under 2.5 seconds round trip. They messed up, and they had some communication under 2.5 seconds, which means it's literally and scientifically impossible that they were on the moon talking to the earth. So that's the easiest way. Of course, you can go find that the shadows don't match, that there's wires caught in the footage. It's just a film that they filmed. Also, side note, declassified document from the CIA mid-60s show that they were very interested in basically green screen technology. So most people may be surprised that that already existed. It's called traveling matte. They actually used infrared wavelengths. So the complete ability to layer things with fake backgrounds and to make fake films not only existed, but the CIA was very interested in it, and it wasn't declassified till 2013. So that's a whole rabbit hole. I encourage you to look into it if you haven't gotten there yet. The Apollo missions were completely fake. So one question that we normally get is, you think all the people at NASA are in on it. There's a huge overlap, obviously, with quote-unquote flat Earth and this, and so it's unavoidable to occasionally mention it, but I know a former NASA employee, actually he was even stationed in Antarctica. He's a flat earther, and he's coming on my show soon, so I won't reveal too much, but, it's a misconception that people at NASA either know that the Earth is flying through space and space travel is real, or they're lying. That isn't how it works. They just do their job. They do their job. It's called compartmentalization. It would be very, very ineffective if they didn't do that. So just so you know, I know multiple NASA employees that are flat earthers, so you put that together for me. All right, so here is an actual astronaut from NASA kind of explaining it. I think it's important to understand this. People will say, well, what about the people in the control room? You know, like, are they all in on it? You think all these people are lying? Wouldn't someone come out and say something? Before we get into if the people that have said stuff, here is an astronaut explaining kind of how it all works and how her understanding of it was. And this is a NASA astronaut supposedly been to space. Okay, so let's hear how her understanding of going to space is portrayed, and maybe that'll answer your question, because I get that question a lot. You think all the NASA astronauts are lying? You think all the NASA employees are lying? And no, I don't think that. I think the vast majority of them have no idea, and almost none of them are lying.
Worked on Apollos 8 and 10. What was that like? Can you describe your feelings during those 2 missions, what it was like?
Well, the missions were so nominal that you almost couldn't believe that it was happening. We had been simulating these things for so long, and everything goes wrong in the simulations. You have devious little men that plan simulations. They plan to do everything wrong so that they can mess everybody up. So when we got to the real mission, it seemed like a piece of cake, really.
What sort of things in the simulations would they have go wrong? What sort of problems would they present to you?
The engine fails. Their gyroscopes and reference equipment will fail. You'll lose communication. They'll underburn, they'll overburn, they'll have abort situations come up.
Do you think that there is any danger when actual astronauts are involved and it's not a simulation, that your mental attitude won't take into consideration the fact that it's a manned mission, that it will be too much like an exercise?
I think you always remember that there are men on board, and even during simulations, it's not just an exercise. The simulations seem as real as the mission. We have men in simulations. They're in the simulator. They're not flying up to the moon, but we feel like they're real.
You feel like they're real, but do you think that the entire space program, as you view it in your work, has a sense of unreality to it?
I think the atmosphere you work in is a little bit unreal as far as the actual facilities are concerned. You're totally isolated. You're surrounded by machines. There are no windows in the buildings where you work. The lighting is always the same. You lose all track of time. You think in terms of ground elapsed time, and that becomes the only reality.
So that's an astronaut telling you basically MK Ultra. If you don't know, obviously Operation MK Ultra, Project MK Ultra, the government admits they actively brainwashed individuals. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But the point here is that she said a few very important things. She said that she couldn't tell the difference between the real thing and simulation, and the only difference was that the real thing went way smoother than the simulations, and that there was no way to really know, and even the people that were involved with setting up the mission wouldn't really know, and that there were a few devious men that set up the simulations. So as to the question of, do you think all these astronauts are lying? Well, I think a group of Masons probably could lie, yeah. I also don't think all of them even have to lie. And here is Gene Kranz, that's the Apollo flight director, in his own words, telling you they don't all have to lie. He said, in the late 1960s, our simulation technology had progressed to the point where it became virtually impossible to separate the training from actual missions. The simulations became full dress rehearsals for the missions down to the smallest detail. The simulation tested out the crew's and controllers' responses to normal and emergency conditions. It checked out the exact flight plan, mission rules, and procedures that the crew and controllers would use for a later flight. The simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission. That's straight from the horse's mouth, that the simulations are so good in the 60s that no one involved in the control room could tell the difference. What do you think it's like in 2024? So to answer the question, of course, no, they don't have to all be on it. I think you would be very stupid to tell the entire control room you were faking space. You would just let them sit in front of their monitor, read their data, and relay it, and that's how that would go. So now let's get into, obviously, to try to explain to you guys how NASA lies, you have to look at what they claimed was real. And so from here on out, it's quite a few videos. You have to look into the videos they claim of them being in space. And although there are hundreds of hours, they have messed up sometimes, and we caught them. And they have not released public statements addressing it. In fact, I just got kicked out of a council meeting in Brevard County, which is, of course, in Florida, where they launch rockets. We just got cut off. My buddy got cut off exposing the Challenger hoax. They kicked us out. We've formally sent in suits demanding answers. You don't get answers. So what I'm saying is, if NASA was telling the truth and we're just making stuff up that they're faking it, wouldn't you just quickly address it publicly and debunk it? They do not do that. They do the opposite. They threaten you with lawsuits. They threaten you with crimes. They shut you down. They don't let you finish speaking. They kick you off of every major platform. So this is interesting. Also, all the comment sections are shut off, which is a violation of the First Amendment. As a public federal organization, you must be open to critique. And actually, the Supreme Court's already ruled on that. Even people that work in Congress cannot block people on social media. They cannot turn off comment sections, because as a public employee, they are open to critique. So NASA's apparently special, and they don't have to do that. They turn off the comment section. So just so you know, there is no official answer. Now, you will hear people make up answers, and some people in here may even believe it's real, and you'll start doing mental gymnastics and try to explain some of the stuff I'm about to show you. That's the best you got, by the way. Whatever you come up with is all we got, because there is no official answer, and I'll be honest, there is actually no answer whatsoever to these questions. So here's a guy on the ISS. He's asked a question. This is just a clip out of the video. This is basically a bunch of children record questions, and this is why I'm so passionate about this, by the way. Children are being told these things as if they're fact. And so when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, this develops your entire worldview. And yeah, I think that's pretty important. So anyway, the questions come from children, and they answer the questions. It's all edited. None of it's live, obviously, but just watch the guy answer the question and see if you notice anything that happens.
Space, yes, you can. In fact, as we've been talking up here, you can see the whole hurricane, and that's pretty neat.
What he's saying doesn't even matter, you know.
The eye and how it's forming. But one of the things that's interesting about up here, when you see that whole hurricane, you're pretty amazed, and you start taking pictures and all of that.
What is that?
Then you forget that there are people.
They're supposedly in space, right? That's 0G. Am I tripping? I guess things fall in 0G. I've heard so much cope for this video, bro. Like, oh, well, no, he threw it down. No, he didn't throw anything, bro. What are you talking about? He's holding a little blow-up fake globe, and he dropped it. He dropped it. So this is a major problem. I think they actually did try to record this live. So what they did was they actually threw in the edited videos that aren't live from the children, and they tried to run through the answers. Watch this guy over to the left as well. He's like, uh-oh. And then this girl in the middle, she's like trying to play it off. She's like, don't pick it up. And these are stooges, bro. These are supposedly the smartest scientists in the world that are in space going 17,500 miles per hour. I mean, just watch it one more time. Obviously, it's pretty obvious what's wrong here. But I think it's funny to watch the dude to the left. He's awful. He should be fired. He can't keep a straight face at all. He totally gives it away. So the question was about hurricanes or something. He drops. He's like, oh, no. She's like, don't get it. She's like, don't pick it up. It's so funny. So this is one of maybe like 1,000 that we have, but we'll go through some more. So this one is very interesting. We had to actually take this video and fast forward it. I started something called Audit NASA. You can go to auditnasa.com. Where I'm putting together a team that looks through this stuff, because it's very time consuming, obviously, doesn't pay well. So anyway, these are some of the things that we've caught. if you look over here, can you see my mouse? Yeah. So you look over here to the left, you see this plastic bag hanging on the wall. Now, again, this guy's on the ISS. He's, just so you guys know what that is, okay, there's an ISS, and you can, in fact, see something in the sky. They claim that they're going around the Earth every 90 minutes. So, of course, they claim the Earth's a globe, 24,900 miles in circumference. And this is free falling around the globe, and it's going 17,500 miles per hour. And because they're free falling, and we won't get into the technicalities of the geodesic of the bending and warping of space-time, blah, 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 they're floating. There's no gravity, okay? That's the official story. And in fact, I've talked to astronauts, they say, oh, you get taller in space and all this weird stuff. But okay, so that's where this guy supposedly is. Now, we had to fast forward at 16x and then again. If you look over here to the left, just remember, everything should be floating. And this is in a Ziploc bag. And watch what happens to this little, it looks like a sticky note, like a pad of sticky notes right here. Watch what happens to this as we go through the sped up footage. It falls. Did you see it? So that's physically impossible. We don't need conversations about, oh, maybe they didn't fake. It's just physically impossible. That means that they faked it. Now, I'll tell you what exactly that looks like. There's something called zero-G flights. So you can get in a plane, you can go up really high, it goes at an angle, and then what they do is they start falling, right? And once they turn and start falling, you feel like you're floating for a second because you're free falling. You only have a few minutes. The official narrative will say there's only 30 seconds, but no, we've already talked to people that do it all the time. You can get up to 3 or 4 minutes depending on how high you go, what speed you go, and what angle you go. So you can float for 3, 4, 5 minutes. That's what would happen in a zero-G plane, right? Because you can't completely avoid turbulence in the plane. Now, I don't know exactly what they did, and it really doesn't matter. They're not floating in space, okay? That's what's important. And I think if you're new to this, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around the magnitude of that lie, that they're putting out these films to the world. But again, we'll watch it one more time. Nothing should be falling ever. And I'll tell you, I've talked to an astronaut face-to-face and asked her, she said, nothing can ever fall, nothing ever falls. It very clearly falls. I wish I had put a little bit longer there, but you'll see, we'll move right here. It's falling down. Okay, that's impossible. You see it? Make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, that can't happen. So maybe NASA's telling the truth. They just lied this one time. Okay. Now, I will say the obvious elephant in the room here is that if NASA lies one time, you can't trust anything that they say. What normally happens is people start freaking out and they're like, well, what about this other live stream? It's like, what? Like they didn't mess up one time? It's like, here's a video of your girlfriend cheating on you. What about all the times she didn't cheat on me? What? She's cheating on you, bro. So here's a few videos of them messing up. This is kind of like a smash. And I will tell you, obviously, we can't watch them all. There are thousands of them. And unfortunately for NASA, they started lying in the 50s. And so now, we won't go through every single one. You can see that there's actually now this is a rabbit hole right here in itself. There's a scuba tank inside here. See that scuba tank? That's because they're in a pool. And so that's a whole rabbit hole. There's a real-size ISS replica in a pool in Houston. They admittedly trained there. That's where this film is actually coming from. So let's just go through some of the, okay, here they are floating on the ISS. Oh, wait a minute, what happened? So they all slam up against the wall. Now, there it is, official footage. Oh, that's what happens on zero-G planes. This is literally exactly what happens. So do you guys think that's a coincidence? So there you go. That's just a footage of a parabolic flight, and people fall because once it starts to remove the free fall and you start to come back up, you fall. That's what happened on the ISS. Maybe a coincidence. So, and by the way, this video, and one thing you'll find if you do research this, they scrub all these videos. They scrub them all. They just disappear. We have to pull them. We have to rip them. We have to save them and then share them ourselves. And it's very hard to get the original sources. I do have most of the original sources. You can use something called the Wayback Machine, and that will pull back videos that have been deleted, pull back URLs that have been deleted. And so that's actually how we caught them taking a picture of the Earth too, by the way, supposedly from the moon. So here's one of the funniest ones to me. And we're going to go through some of these because if you've never seen them, we got to break through your cog disc, man. Oh, maybe they faked it there. Like, no, they're liars. and they're gay. So let's, dude, if you deny that, you're homophobic. They say they're gay. So, all right, you see here, what is that? This is supposedly in space. And did you see what happened? Sorry, I forgot I have it all on one video. This glitches out and it cuts to an actual virtual reality screen. So if you look here, boom. That's a real life original source video that glitches out. So this shows you, this is supposedly a live stream showing them like moving some arm of some equipment in space, right? And live time, they accidentally try to cut. Now I could slow this all down. I have done that. You can see it's exactly the same as this expo. So you see that it's exactly the same in the middle corner there. In the middle box, you'll see, I'll try to pause it right on it. Okay, the middle box in the top is exactly the same as the equipment that we see, and you'll see it come back. There you go. It's actually moving in unison. We've done the slow-mo of all of it. So why are they showing you fake footage, bro? If you could go to space, why not just show us that? So this is NASA blatantly using virtual reality and green screens to fake space with models. That should be interesting, right? That should be interesting. Doesn't seem legit. Here's another video of them on the ISS. Again, this is no gravity. Uh-oh. And look, this is what's so telling to me. So everyone's different. To me, I'm like big on the body language. I'm like, watch this guy freak out here. He's like, oh, did I mess up? Someone's like, yeah, bro, you messed up. Watch him like look over to the camera and clearly like being frantic. They dropped their divorce papers. Oh, did I mess up, bro? That's so funny to me. There's another angle. It's like, oh, gig is up. And no one's ever seen this. Probably no one in this room, unless you've researched it, you've never even seen that. They just scrub it. They mess up and scrub it. All right, here's another one. This is funny. Oh, what just happened? Gravity only happens in magical gravity pockets on the ISS. You just don't know how it works. Look, he just blatantly drops the object. So, and again, the one thing I want to point out, because for people that are being honest, you can tell that they know they messed up. So just like watch him. He's like, oh yeah, that was not supposed to happen. So anyway, I actually mentioned this. I'll say this, right? I didn't put this in the presentation. I don't think I did the best. I could have done better, but I recently pointed this out to Brevard County Commission Office, and I said, so, forensics analysis has been done, and it has proven that objects are free-falling in an allegedly zero-G environment, which is scientifically impossible. And NASA needs to come out and either launch transparent disclosure or somehow explain it. And, of course, they just ignored it and then kicked us out. So there's to me, I think it's the whole conversation's over. NASA's lying. They're dropping stuff in space. So I don't know. I've never heard. I asked an astronaut face-to-face. I go to NASA on occasion. I talk to astronauts. I haven't released all that footage because I know once I do, they won't let me go back. But she told me face-to-face, nothing can drop on the ISS. Nothing ever falls. I said, I've seen people drop things. And then she just nervously laughed and asked if I wanted a picture. So you tell me. So this is another video. He drops a screw. So obviously you guys get the idea. They're dropping stuff in space. You got to wonder, though, like, if space is real, why would you lie about it? Even if you couldn't go there, just don't lie about it. It's because it's not actually a place you can go to. And that's where you fall down the rabbit hole. So let's see. I won't make you go through all of these. Here, this guy is magic and just goes through the lemon. It's because the lemon is layered. It's augmented reality. The lemon's not actually there. I can do that in my live stream. So obviously, I hope you saw it. We'll do it again. His hand goes right through the lemon. Some people make up the craziest excuses for this stuff, but I'm just showing people that are honest, so I don't care about the rest. All right, here is actual footage from NASA's moon mission. And watch in the bottom left. Oh, what was that? Oh, it's a space meteorite. So anyway, it's supposedly locked in its place. Obviously, it messed up, but there's so much here. Let me skip through some of it. They fake at. Honestly, this is my favorite stuff, is when they show like close up of supposedly Earth. So we've slowed it down. We've shown the stars go through the Earth. The stars are a layer. So this is fake. Here he's showing that the lightning actually glitches out. It's all CGI. It's CGI. So we'll save you some time. Take my word for it or don't. Look, that's actually fake. So, but okay, this is very funny to me. So watch, they're supposedly playing with the soccer ball, because I want to point this out to you guys too. Isn't it weird that people on the ISS, they're just like constantly concerned with convincing us that they're on the ISS? Why? I want to make sure you guys know I'm in space. Why would you do that? Shouldn't you be doing science or something? Every single thing is like, hey, trust me, bro, we're up here floating in space. No, you're not. So if you watch the ball's going to bounce off of nothing. Watch it. It just bounces back. What? That's because it's a screen. That background is layered. It's a green screen. They're in front of another wall that can be removed from the background layer. He accidentally drops the ball. It just bounces off of nothing and bounces back. And there are thousands of things that happen like this. I'll show a few more. Here's Don Pettit. I guess there are bugs in space, and he just swats a bug. And if you don't know anything about Don Pettit, he's not the brightest. I'll give you this. So he messes up a lot. So he's not the brightest guy. We'll skip some more. Here, I want you guys to know what they do, right? So here they have different ways to do it. They have contact lenses, all kinds of stuff, and you'll have a screen over here in front of you, and you'll look and you'll see the object, and you'll interact with a fake object that's not really there. They can make it float that way. This guy thinks he's grabbing the hat, but he hasn't handed it to him yet. You see it? And then he sits it down. What are you sitting down, bro? You don't got anything in your hand. So this guy messes up a lot as well. It's funny. So they're using augmented reality to make it look like the hat. This isn't NASA, but another thing I hear a lot is, you think all the space agencies are lying? Like, have you ever looked at the other space agencies? Their videos are way worse. Like, yeah, let's go talk about that actually. So this is Japan or China. Oh, it just falls. Just falls. It's on the ISS though. So it's just hilarious. Let's see what's next here. I mean, I think we all saw it. It falls. So, I've never heard an explanation for it, but whatever. Here is interesting. You actually see, some people might want to know how it works. They wear harnesses and wires, clearly. You can actually see the wire here. So they mess up, and that's because there is a reflective screen back here, and so it shows the wire. So if you look closely, you'll see that there's like a part of his shirt that's pulled up like this, and then you'll see the wire connected to it. It's like a hook right there, and it goes right with the part of his shirt. So yeah, he's hanging on a wire. And by the way, that's how we make space movies. This isn't like a new thing. It's just how you do it. Probably coincidence, though. There's another part where obviously he's got the harness. So obviously they're supposedly floating in space, but you'll see that all the female's hair just doesn't move. It's because it's got it's hairspray. It's hairspray, right? Because you can watch someone do the zero-G planes and their hair floats around. Like, it's almost like watery. There may be one of those in here. I don't know. There's so many. Oh, transmission issue. All right. It's green screen. That's why you saw the green there. I'm trying to speed up a little bit through here, but so here is very funny. The guy just disappears from the screen. Oh, where'd he go? Before he gets around the corner, he disappears. It's because the astronaut's layered. I'm being somewhat over the top here with examples because I've seen people, they got to get away from it. It's uncomfortable. NASA's lying about space. Okay, they lie. This is fake. It's basically a movie set. This is hilarious. Now, there's something before the ISS called Space Lab, I believe it's called. Skylab, thank you. Okay, this is the ISS before the ISS. And supposedly, while they're on the Skylab, they brought up, now they'll be like, every single pound matters. I don't know if you've ever heard all that. It's like when they go to the moon, they snuck golf clubs and it almost took them overweight. Yeah, they snuck golf clubs on the moon. They took 500-pound weights, allegedly, and this guy's picking it up. And the point here is like, watch this. Watch him. What is going on? So he's hooked the string. So the funny part is that back in the day, it was harder to fake stuff, right? Like now we know that's fake. Back then, people might have fallen for it. But so I go straight to the old stuff. Now watch, the weight is supposedly in 0G. You'll see him start struggling, like he's lifting it, and then it falls down. It's supposed to be 0G, bro. Did no one tell you? It's supposed to be floating. And then obviously they have something attached to him, and then they just pull him up. So it's so funny, yeah. So, and then I think this part might be a little important because I don't really know where we're at on time. But here's how they fake it. So if you look here, this is how they do it in movies. They put people on strings, and so this isn't like some crazy conspiracy. This is how we make movies, right? Like we know that's what they do. So. There's how they do it on the screen. You obviously have green screens. Most of you are probably familiar with that. People ask, how do they have water in space? How does she have magical black fluid coming from her eyes? That's not there. It's just special effects. And then I'll show you here. You'll see the girl has a necklace that's floating in space. Oh, all of a sudden there's a necklace floating. And then I'll show you one more, just so you guys kind of get an idea of how it's faked. And you should be furious about this, by the way. They get $60 to $80 million a day. So that's your taxpayer money, and they're just making films with it. So here is the Big Bang Theory TV show. So I think if they can fake the ISS, NASA probably can. So there you go, just so you know kind of how it's done. They just overlay these objects. It's not real. So obviously, we could have done that for another 4 hours. I encourage you guys to look at it. You can actually go to my YouTube, Whitsitt Gets It. I have a NASA fraud thing. There's lots of good... to get past censorship, you have to get to one of the real content creators, and then you can find it. We'll lead you to the truth. And you know what's so funny? Why is she pointing at her hair? So I don't have the audio in here, I don't think, but basically they say, are you really in space? That's what the interviewer says. And like, yeah, look at my hair. It's like a movie, bro. It's like well, why are they trying to convince us they're there? So look, her hair doesn't move. Now watch, he also grabs him here. Whoa, what's that? Let me bring it back. So you see him grabbing the string to make sure, see, he pulls the string. That dude's on a wire. You see him pull it? Here's some more hair for you. There you go. Look at her hair. Everyone knows what hairspray looks like, right? Some of you were even alive in the 80s. You know exactly what it looks like. That's just hairspray. So... isn't this weird? Like, isn't it weird that our government's lying and making movies about being in space? Now, you can go one of two ways. You can be like, okay, look, he just grabbed a string. Look, her hair's not moving. Look, objects floated out of nowhere. Oh, things are falling. Or you can be like, well, actually, there was an air current from the air conditioner that made it look like it was falling. And actually, you can do whatever you want to do. I just showed you guys the information. They're faking space. There's really no way around it. Now, I find this part pretty interesting.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to let my boy, this is Taboo Conspiracy. I'm going to let him kind of explain this to you, but this is to address this question, okay? Why don't astronauts come out? Why don't any of the astronauts come out and tell us? If the Earth is not what they said, if space isn't real, wouldn't one of the astronauts blow the whistle? Well, honestly, most of them wouldn't. I will say my dad was in the military. He will not tell me what happened, okay? It's not on the table. It's on the table. He's not allowed to tell me what happened. Okay, and that's my own father. So obviously you have NDAs, and it's really not even technically called an NDA, but it's effectively an NDA. When you're in the military, you're talking about treason if you come out and say things. So that's a kind of a cope question, like why haven't the astronauts said anything? Do you actually think that the astronauts would come out and say something and risk their life so you could just call them crazy anyway? But here are a couple that did. And you may find it interesting. This will kind of lead us into the next presentation in a second. You'll find it interesting what they had to say. So I'm going to let Taboo kind of explain it to you.
But now we have a Soviet cosmonaut who has said that we have never been to space. This cosmonaut's name is Igor Petrovich Volk. Mr. Volk even received the Medal of the Hero of the Soviet Union. I have included the translation of the interview, which you can verify by clicking on the CC button on YouTube. Now please watch the interview.
Все пак вие сте и герой на Съветския съюз и можем да ви вярваме.
Герой Советского Союза, мы можем верить вам.
Вы знаете, вот ты сказал, что вроде чести космонавтов, что они не говорят о том в космосе. А им говорить нечего. Я об этом
кара космонавтите да говорят за това, което става в космоса. Те просто не знаят нищо такова. Ние не сме били в космоса. Ако някой твърди това, това не е вярно, не е истина.
Това е поредната хипотеза, над която ще се наложи заедно с зрителите на въпросна гледна точка да размишляваме дълго.
Хорошо.
Добре.
Это хорошо, когда
това
люди
е добре,
думают.
когато хората мислят. Това ми харесва.
Игор Петрович, благодаря ви за участието във въпросна гледна точка.
Моля.
The quote from this was that the guy must have been joking. He later comes out and clears up he was not joking. In fact, this same guy interviewed him. I won't make you guys watch it, but he comes out and says, oh, he told me in private for sure. No one's been to space. The moon landing's fake. You can't go to space. Anyone saying that they went to space is lying, and that the Earth is flat. So that's weird. So, I mean, automatically, it's not just some crazy guy up here from Florida saying the Earth is flat. We're talking about astronauts. We're talking about before they die, they come out and say that the Earth is flat and you can't go to space. And that may be a tough pill to swallow, but why do astronauts think that? And the reason I threw that Soviet Union guy in there is because people say, you think the Soviet Union wouldn't have told on us for faking the moon landing? No, I don't think that. Do you think that the mafia goes and tells the cops how the mob works? No, they're all faking space. Why would they go tell on the other person faking space? And why would they make it known to the public, oh, space is something that can be faked? They wouldn't do that. That's another Cope question, as I call them. So anyway, here's an interview he has later, and he explains, we won't watch all this, but this guy straight up explains, no, I talked to him in private. He definitely wasn't joking. Hung out with him for a week. He said space travel's fake, and they're faking space travel. Anyone in America that said that they went to space is lying. Everyone knows the moon landing was fake. None of that's real. You can't go to space. And now, if you don't know, the Soviet Union was the ones that claimed to get to space first. See, we went on the moon first, allegedly, but the Soviet Union got to space first. So we have Soviet Union astronauts saying that that's all a lie. And this is the guy that interviewed him explaining it. So I thought that was interesting. This would technically be fallacious to say that this proves it. It would be anecdotal. But do you have any proof people were in space? No, it's all anecdotal, and it's like NASA wouldn't lie. So let's see what we got here. Okay. This is hilarious, and this will maybe wrap us up. I didn't keep up with time. Sorry if I went over. So this is a compilation of different NASA astronauts answering the question as to whether or not you can see stars in space. Now, I'll say this. Don't you think if you've been to space, you probably know what happens, right? Like, if someone asked me what happened in my high school state playoff game, I know what happened. No, the guy blitzed on third down. We didn't pick him up. Like, I know what happened. I'm not going to be like, I don't know if you can see the football, right? Like, I know what happened. I lived it. It's important that we just come to grips with the fact that these people are lying to you, and if you want to believe it, that's cool. They're lying to children. They're lying to children. And you know how many children think being an astronaut would be super cool? You know how many children have their whole worldview formulated by the idea that we're a tiny speck of dust in an ever-expanding universe and you can go fly in a vacuum? That's important. And if you don't want to be strong enough to point it out or call it out, don't include the children in that nonsense. I've been to NASA. They are inundating and indoctrinating children emotionally, and it is a lie, and it is disgusting, and it should be exposed. And so that's kind of how I feel about that. But let's listen to them, and you can decide for yourself if these people are being honest. Keep in mind, again, this guy's supposedly been in space 100 times. The other guy's been in space 100 times. And they're asked a simple question, and let's compare them all, and then I'll tell you a little bit of a personal testimony in relation to this, and we'll wrap it up.
From Mark Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah. So
all
because
the
you can
time.
see,
Yeah,
because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas. Magellan clouds of the Milky Way
you see
galaxy.
The Magellanic Clouds.
Magellanic, see, I just wanted the Magellan
well, there's a large
clouds.
one and a small one, right?
Yeah.
And then you can see the zodiacal lights.
Whoa.
Those are amazing. Right before
the lights
sunrise.
of the zodiac.
The lights of the zodiac. The zodiacal lights.
But one thing to add to this, I think, which is kind of interesting about being able to look into the black void, is that we can't do that when the sun is out here on Earth, and it's not because the sun is so bright. It's because this atmosphere. Right? The light comes through the atmosphere and refracts, and we see blue. It scatters. We see blue. So what we see is.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, Mr. Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time for gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any, and so on?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon. The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although there have been some reports of seeing planets. I myself did not see planets from the surface, but I suspect they might be visible.
You don't see stars in the daytime on Earth, not because they're not there, but because the atmosphere is aglow with scattered light from the sun. If you take away the atmosphere, the sun will still be there, but the sky goes dark. That's what the folks get when they go to the edge of the atmosphere, and they're calling that the edge of space. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere is no longer between you and the rest of the universe, and the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. Since the moon has no atmosphere, then a daytime picture, if you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere, the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. If you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
So you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you know, actually on my very first mission, we went up and when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
So you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars. The cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
They're brighter, but they're different. And a lot of things different about them. One, you don't have the atmospheric distortion, so they don't twinkle, right? So you see lots of points, and you see lots of points, and that literally millions of them. And I live in Colorado, and you get up on a clear night in Colorado up in the mountains where there's no light and you can see all these stars. Well, multiply that by 1,000. That's what it's like in space. And then when you're outside doing a spacewalk and you have that one or two opportunities where you can let your eyes adjust, you can start to notice that some of the stars have colors we don't see here on the ground.
And we could not see stars.
The sky, of course, was black, but it had sort of a velvet sheen to it.
The biggest visual surprise was just how black the sky was. You have a brilliant sun, brighter than any sun you normally would see, even here in New Mexico. You have these extraordinarily high mountains. We were in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon. But then you have this black sky, a sky blacker than black, as the old Viticon expression used to be.
Just the inherent beauty of it, the velvet, bottomless bucket of the universe.
In like just hanging there in a vast sea of darkness, and the most frightening darkness that you could ever imagine.
I've often tried to explain the difference between darkness, when you turn out the lights and it's dark in here, or blackness. Blackness is the endlessness of it all. It's hard to comprehend.
When you get up on a clear night in Colorado, up in the mountains where there's no light and you can see all these stars, well, multiply that by 1,000. That's what it's like in space.
And we could not see stars.
I was just a systems engineer on a well-functioning spacecraft coming home. And so, sure, I had work to do, but not nearly as pressing as before. And we were oriented such that we were rotating to keep thermal balance on the spacecraft, and oriented in such a way that every 2 minutes the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and a 360-degree panorama of the heavens appeared in the cabin window. And that was awesome. It was an overwhelming experience. And we have to realize that in space, without the intervening atmosphere, the heavens are 10 times as bright, stars 10 times as numerous, because there's no atmosphere to block the light. And we have to realize that in space, without the intervening atmosphere, the heavens are 10 times as bright, stars 10 times as numerous, because there's no atmosphere to block the light.
Yeah. So because you can see, so you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, the sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
Well, I think it's important to point out that that's the official model of the Earth. It isn't actually debatable based on like simple physics. You would see the stars on the day side of Earth in space because there's no atmosphere to scatter the light. There would be no diffusion of light. You would see the stars. So it's crazy they couldn't even get that story right. But
and when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
So you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Anyway, there's like 10 more examples. They're all liars. Okay, now we'll close it with this. I mean, obviously, I hope you put that together. They're telling directly contradictory testimony. So some are saying that when you're in space on the side of the sun, you can see all kinds of stars because there's no atmosphere. Some are saying, oh, you can't see any stars. The sun washes out the stars. They cannot both be true. They could not have both have gone to space and looked at stars. This is very simple stuff. Right now, I'll tell you this to close it out here. Like I said, I can't show the footage because I know as soon as I make it public, they'll kick me out of there. Right, they won't let me go anymore, but I go to NASA and I document conversations with the astronauts. I have quite a few. When I release them, it will be very interesting to see what happens, to say the least. But this is one that I talked to here. This girl supposedly in space, and she's doing a spacewalk, and she drops her bag. She drops her tool bag. Uh-oh. Okay. And what's so funny is they claim, you saw how big, it was like a backpack. They claim you could see it from the Earth. And it looked like a star, literally. This is an official thing. But anyway, so you know who I was talking to. And I'll close it with this. So I went and talked to her face to face. And it's not a good look for NASA. So I trapped her with this whole conversation. I had very tactical questions. I caught her lying 3 or 4 times. She got super nervous. I then asked her about, and again, mind you, I'm like 2 feet away from her, like it's face to face. I asked her, so do you see the stars on the day side of Earth when you're in space, when you're on the side of the sun? She said, no, you can't see the stars when you're on the side of Earth that has the sun. I said, are you sure, though? Okay, are you sure you can't see stars? No, 100% you can't see stars. I've heard that you can see stars even on the day side of Earth. And she said, so she realized like, oh, she messed up, right? She didn't know the official story that she was supposed to tell me. This is the girl right here that dropped the bag. And she says, no, I'm pretty sure you can't see stars in space near the sun. So that's a personal testimony. I lived it. I can tell you, I looked her in the eyes. She's a liar. She 100% is lying. I would bet everything I own on it. I know she's lying. She got nervous. She dropped things. I asked her, do you have to test your spacesuits in a vacuum? I haven't revealed all of this yet, but she's like, yeah, you have to test them. I'm like, okay, well, I saw someone test it and their tongue started boiling. So that's intense. And she's like, oh, no, it's really pretty mundane. It's no big deal. They drop you in the vacuum chamber, and then you know what else they do? They put a bowl of water in there so you can see it. And I cut her off. I said, boil. She's trying to convince me they were really in a vacuum. She's like, oh, they also will drop a bowling ball and a feather. And I'm like, and they drop at the same rate, right? She was telling me propaganda narratives. Just think about this logically, that they're going to test a spacesuit to see if you're going to die when you go to space. They lower the astronaut into the vacuum and they're like, while we're at it, let's put a bowl of water in there that boils to convince the astronaut he's really in a vacuum. Let's drop a bowling ball and a feather. Okay, and hopefully that was coherent enough to follow. Long story short, they are liars. They are given a script to reveal to the public, and when you go in there and you ask them certain questions, they start messing up. Because most people go in there and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you sign my shirt, right? So they're not ready for anyone asking questions. And so I will just close it with that. I will tell you, not only have we seen like damning evidence that obviously NASA is objectively lying and faking footage, but I have kind of Veritas style footage I haven't released yet, who has caught them point blank lying and contradicting themselves in the same conversation. And so I'm really going to be interested to see someone cope with the fact the astronaut doesn't know what happened when they were in space. And they're lying. So just so you know, I'll say this in closing. This is super important. I went there and they have a whole setup where they have the children come in and it's called like Heroes. And they play this real like triumphant, climactic music. They talk about the astronauts that lost their lives and how they're heroes. And I saw children from 3 up going in there, watching this film, crying. It's propaganda, and people may wonder why, like, what's it matter if they believe in astronauts? Well, they think that space is something that it's not. They think that people can go there. They live their whole life thinking that. And we'll get into it later in the next presentation, but it has major implications on their worldview. They think that they're a tiny speck of dust in this ever-expanding vacuum of nothingness, and we know that it's like that because people went there. Well, people didn't go there. And so I will say that's what's going to lead us into the next presentation, I'm assuming after a little bit of a break, is if NASA's telling the truth, the Earth can't be flat, obviously. Because they've been there. They looked at the Earth. It's a ball. We got pictures. It was on my iPhone. It was the wallpaper on my iPhone. Admittedly Photoshop, by the way, but we won't get into that yet. So the point is, oh, well, NASA is lying. So now I want you to think, because I'm not going to let you get away if you thought you were going to leave before the FE presentation. Okay, I want to know, what evidence do you have the Earth is a globe? And I know for a fact, if you think it's a globe, it is that NASA supposedly showed you a picture of it. That's a fact. Let's just be real. You've never seen a globe. You never felt the Earth spinning. NASA went there and did it for you. You saw a picture. We now know for sure NASA is not a credible source. They're lying. They're basically a glorified film studio. They own the world's biggest green screen. Literally. They own the world's biggest green screen in Louisiana. We cannot trust them. We must detach from the government. We must no longer let them formulate our worldview. We must no longer blindly believe them. And surely after 2020, you know that. So, in conclusion, I will say NASA has been proven liars and fraudulent. I encourage people to go check out Audit NASA, try to support it. We're trying to hold them accountable. They should have to be accountable for lying and stealing. They should actually be tried for crimes against humanity, I say. And I encourage you to look further. You're surprised. The Earth is not what you think, and space is not what you think, and no one's ever been there. You can't go there. And so, yeah, that's basically the closing. NASA's lying to you, stealing your tax money, $60 to $80 million a day. And that should infuriate you. They're liars. And maybe we can raise enough awareness to finally stop them.
Oh, I have a question. There's Christian astronauts that went into space and wrote books about Jesus in space with all these pictures. Is there some kind of simulator they put them in to make them think that did they really believe it, or are they just lying?
Okay, good question. So I think the ones that went to the moon know they didn't go to the moon, for sure. This is because basically Buzz Aldrin turned into an alcoholic and over the years kind of let it slip a few times that we didn't go. Neil Armstrong just completely disappeared. He didn't even make public appearances. So what I think happened, this is speculation, I think they kind of thought it was real. And then right beforehand, they told them, well, we're going to have to fake it. And, you know, they were all former military, so they would know that they can't say anything. I think that the actual Apollo astronauts that supposedly landed, now I know they all claim to be Christian, and obviously just saying that you're Christian, in my opinion, doesn't make you one. But I'm not going to say they are not one. That's not my position. But specifically, the Apollo astronauts are liars. I'll just call it like it is. I think that Buzz Aldrin kind of tried to let a little girl know we've never been. He's been interviewed a few times and said I've never gone. What was the most dangerous thing about the Apollo missions? Well, it could have been dangerous, you know. So I think he let it slip. As to if other astronauts have claimed that, and I don't know what exactly you're referencing, like maybe ISS ones or not. I do think that a lot of them can be in simulators. Like we watched the girl say, I can't tell the difference in the real thing. So she believes she's been in space. I don't think she's in on a lie. I think that they admit they have simulators that are so realistic that the astronauts can't tell the difference for the entire space mission, which is kind of insane to wrap your mind around. But yeah, I think they put astronauts on a simulator and it looks just like the training to them, so they wouldn't know. And that's why I threw the Gene Kranz quote in there. Who says like not even the control room can tell the difference. So I think it's a mixed bag. I think when you have to claim you got out of the spacecraft and walked on the moon, you're going to have to lie. There's not much simulating that, but it's probably a mixed bag would be my answer. I don't think that it's too crazy that a lot of them wouldn't know. According to them, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So that's my answer.
Hey, Austin, over to your left.
Oh,
appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah.
What is the International Space Station if we haven't been to outer space?
Whoa, good question. That's covered in the next presentation. No, I'm just kidding. It is, but so if you don't know, supposedly there's a satellite called the ISS. No footage of it ever being manufactured on Earth. Super sketchy, but there is something up there. You can track it. You can download the ISS tracker. You can go out and see it. I've done it. I've tracked it. We've even caught it crossing the moon and the sun. What is it? Good question. I think satellites aren't fake. I think you can put things in the sky. I don't think that people can be on it. I don't think anyone's on the ISS. It's hard to answer this without getting too technical, to be honest, but according to the equations used for the ISS and other satellites, they use a geocentric model. So they use a stationary Earth. They assume that the universe spins around the Earth, creates a force that you can throw something. It's kind of like if you had a whirlpool in water, you could throw something in it and it would start spinning. That's what the physics and equations show. So I leave it open for that basically the ISS is something that's utilizing the inertial forces from the rotation of the universe around the Earth. There is certainly something up there, but I would say logically, they probably wouldn't have to fake dozens of hours of footage if they were really on it. So that's my answer.
Is it something NASA put up there, or is it?
Good question, bro. Because then it comes into it was first observed in the 80s, but was it up there before that? I don't know. Is it a naturally occurring thing? It looks like something man-made. So I do think that we can put stuff in the sky that floats around called satellites. Some flat earthers don't think that. I do think that. So maybe they put it up there. Yeah, maybe the government put it up there. And they're just lying about where it is, how far away it is, and what it does, and who's on it. So that would be my answer. Yeah, I mean, we know what they're claiming is going on isn't true, right? So that's really all I can speak to.
Hi, Austin. Could you And thank you for coming here and sharing. It's just marvelous. Could you just share a few names that are big in this sphere of, you know, the flat Earth versus the globe? You know, there's people, and we were talking before, David Weiss and others. If you could just mention their names, and people can actually go and research. You know, David Weiss came up with this Apple app that is excellent. So if you could share some of those names. And there was a guy, I was trying to think of his name. He actually did photography, fake photography. His name is Siebel or something like that. And, huh? What? Bart. Yes, Bart Siebel. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with him. So if you could share some of those names, people could just jot those down and they can do a search, and there's a plethora of information out there.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah. So you named the most important one, probably, I would say, is Dave Weiss. So, yeah. I know he's going to be stoked about this. I'm going to plug his app. The Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It does answer all the questions. So if you have questions, go to the App Store, type in Flat Earth, it'll pop up. You download it, there's a little question mark, and you click on it. And every question that you're super confident that no flat earther knows has been thoroughly answered for years, I can assure you. So believe it or not, we didn't want to be flat earthers. We thought it sounded crazy. We had the same questions. So I would say Dave Weiss, that's deep inside the rabbit hole, DIRTH. Obviously, there's also Jaron from Jaronism. The first person I heard was Eric Dubé. And just a disclaimer, I don't agree with any of these people on everything, but that's what being an open-minded truther is. Rob Skiba, who did pass away with the sham that happened a few years ago. Yeah, let's just say the protocol wasn't particularly great and seemed it was almost engineered to inflate numbers of death. So that's very sad. But Rob Skiba really will break it down from a scriptural perspective. There's also Kingdom and Context, Sean Griffin. And there's Hanging on His Words, and those three people really break down the scriptural understanding of the earth. And like I said, Jaron from Jaronism has been in this since the beginning. Now there's so much in Flat Earth, so there's also the super technical people. That's who I like to hang out with. I'm kind of nerdy. So we have Alan from Space Audits. You can look up Space Audits. Yeah, just completely buries relativity. And then we have Shane St. Pierre from Anti-Disinformation League. So the real ADL. Edward Henry. We have all kinds of truthers. You also have a lot of the NASA footage I showed is from a guy named Flat Earth and Coffee. And so I try to encourage him. I think he does good work. People get discouraged because they get so censored. I've been kicked off Venmo, PayPal, Airbnb. You know, Flat Earth's so stupid they got to kick you off Airbnb. So yeah, that's a few names. I would say find one of us, you can find all of us, right? If you just type in Flat Earth, you're done. You're gonna get nothing but hit pieces. So, yeah, you're gonna get them people telling you boats go over the curve. We'll get into that. But yeah, there's a few, man. There's a few. Just get to one of us, and normally you can find all of us. And I will reiterate. Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app is a really good resource. It has all the different content creators on there, all your questions answered. It shows you visualizations, etc. Because we are fighting censorship. So cool. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah.
Yes. All truths eventually lie. All lies eventually die. The vaccine lie is quickly coming to its end, I hope. But how do you see this ending in terms of what will cause the NASA lie to unravel? And what is the straw that eventually breaks the camel's back on this?
Whew, really good question. Not even one I think I know the answer to. But I will say, I think that they know that it's unraveling and they've already created a plan B. It's very naive to think that they're just like hoping it doesn't unravel. The CIA doesn't operate that way. So I think that's what SpaceX is. I hate to break it to you, Elon Musk is not your hero. He's a liar. And you can actually look up a video of Greg Reese, Elon Musk completely exposed. Also, if you're wondering, you can just go look at X, and in order to get monetized, you have to give your biometric data to an Israeli company tied to over 8,600 Israeli military operations and directly tied to Mossad. And so I think that kind of gives you the answer as to whether or not he can be trusted. I also know someone that knows him personally. I won't plug his name, but he's a very, very famous producer. Music producer, said he's talked to Elon, straight up confronted him about flat Earth, said Elon completely freaked out, cussed him out, and blocked him. And like I said, Sam Tripoli said that Elon told his friend the moon landing is completely fake. So to cover that, I think they're using SpaceX because it sounds good, right? It's like, oh, it's a private company. And so they're going to admit that NASA's lying. NASA doctored global, quote unquote, temperature recordings to the 50s to push the global warming scam. People have found out that NASA is not credible and that they're lying. And obviously, I just showed you just a fraction of the evidence. So I think that's their move. I don't think they'll ever come out and say, oh, turns out the Earth is actually stationary and flat and enclosed and built by an amazing creator and you're special and take a... They won't do that. They'll say, oh, well, maybe Electric Universe is right. Maybe the Earth is in the center. I don't even think they can say that. They're going to come up with a new lie, I would say. And that's why it's super important that before that happens and before AI can create a video of anything you can think of and you can't tell if it's real or not, the truth should get out now. So I guess that would be my answer. I think they've already been busted. The censorship has held it back for a long time. And that's why people need to stop being scared to talk about things like this. And maybe then it wouldn't wreck our lives, you know.
Hi.
Hey.
My question is about the Challenger in 1985. That blew up with the crew, with the teacher on it, the educator.
Yeah.
There's a theory that they were never on the plane and that they actually have been found alive.
Yep.
Actually, on Facebook, they're professors. They look exactly alike. What do you have to say about that?
Swinging for the fences. This normally triggers people. Maybe we've gotten a lot out of that realm, but okay, I will say I was in a documentary called Level with me, and it completely exposes that. The Challenger hoax completely exposed. But like she said, of course, that was a very big deal. Supposedly, NASA astronauts died on the Challenger explosion. They put everyday people in there. There was a teacher. The government passed a law that every school had to play it for their students. So you may not know that. And it was trauma-based mind control. Everyone, like, oh, it's a teacher. Then they saw her blow up. And it justified them not going to space anymore. I will say Justin Harvey, my buddy, he was actually at the Brevard County Commission office with me. He got kicked out for exposing this very thing. So if you look up, it's probably hard to find it. He got 500,000 views on TikTok and his account got banned immediately. But yeah, Justin Harvey just started exposing that, and it went kind of viral. And you can go to Level with me to check it out. But basically, the summary is every one of those astronauts have been caught still alive. And if you look into the idea of a doppelganger, so someone that looks like you, it's very, very rare. And when you look into, there was a pair of twins on there. If you look into the idea of looking like you and having the same name, it's incredibly rare. In fact, only one other case in the last 120 years can be found, and that's supposedly what led to the development of fingerprinting. This is multiple cases, lookalikes, same name, same age. And one of them is a professor at Yale. One of them is a retired professor, etc. So they've actually been confronted, and it's in the Level with Me documentary, and the teacher just takes off running when we asked her about it. And then when we asked the Michael Scott guy, he was like, yeah, he does look a lot like me, but I promise that's not me, I promise. So long story short, yeah, it's statistically impossible. Every one of those astronauts that were on there have exact lookalikes, exact same name, exact same age. It was trauma-based mind control, and it justified them not being able to go to space for a long time. And now, obviously, they know people are fed up with it, still want them to go. So yeah, look into it, I will say. I know it's an emotionally charged subject, but hey, man, truth doesn't care about your emotions.
During the Cold War, I find it hard to understand how the Soviet Union didn't take this to a huge advantage, knowing that we had a fake moon landing. and NASA is separate from their space program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why did that fail? Like, why would they have kept silent?
Yeah, good question. I will say that's what placated me for a long time. So I found out that the moon landing was fake, and then I thought, but no, the Soviet Union would tell us, and then I'm like, well, maybe they couldn't find out. And then obviously you can get into arguments. Well, no, they were monitoring us. They could find out. Well, you wouldn't be very good at war if you could let your enemy literally know everything. But I will say, this is what I currently think because I've now found out that the Earth is flat. There's international cooperation, including the Antarctic Treaty. These countries work together. They pretend to be enemies so that they can get control of their populations. And so if you look back, basically, the Soviet Union was the first to go to space. They sent the first person to space. They sent the first satellite to space. They sent the first monkey to space. So they got to tell their population, we were the first ones to space. We got to tell our population we were the first that landed on the moon. And so when you step back and look at it a little different, which is that, oh, well, these are orchestrated. I mean, the Cold War was 40 years long. It was just a propaganda war. It was a war on your mind. And that would be my answer. And this is why I kind of use the analogy of the mob. Say one mob the feds start investigating a mob. The other mafia is not going to run up to the feds and be like, here's how it all works, because then they'll get caught. And so I think they wouldn't want anyone to know that space could be faked. I think they had some type of agreement probably, but even if they didn't, they wouldn't have snitched on them is kind of my take. And one thing I know for sure is something had to happen because the moon landing's fake, right? So. Okay, yeah. So Operation Mockingbird is declassified. CIA completely infiltrated every major news station and media outlet and put liaisons from the CIA inside of it to control the narrative and propagandize the American public. Declassified. Most of the news anchors you watch are CIA agents, not even a conspiracy, it's admitted.
So this is a follow-up on the question regarding the Challenger. I was at Boeing for 36 and a half years. That very day, I was an engineer. I was supposed to go to the Museum of Flight and meet with John Glenn for a presentation on NASA. What is so disgusting is the remorse and the grief that went through the community based on that lie. I mean, I'm here to testify that that went to the bone. And to just be lied like that is literally disgusting. So I experienced that firsthand.
Wow, nice. She's not suicidal. Bit of a Boeing joke, obviously, but no, yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. So I appreciate your comment, and I think that's trauma-based mind control. When someone is in a state of trauma, you can tell them to do anything. If people heard gunshots, you know what's going to happen? First of all, everyone's going to turn to the people at open carry, shout to them, and they're going to just not think logically. They're going to freak out. They're going to start running. It's, again, documented and declassified. They put you in a state of trauma. They can manipulate what you believe, and yeah, that's what it is. I agree. It's absolutely disgusting that they did that, and they need to be held accountable, so we have to raise awareness.